Interphase Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Dagger Law, and the Frank E. Smith Funeral Home.
Well, hi and welcome to Fairfield Today. My name is Rick Schneider, community educator with Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, and we are the home of the Pickering House. And today I think we have an excellent show. I was going to say Denise Bauer wasn't here, but I don't want to put that on one stretch there. But Denise is off, so I'll be taking over the show. Joining me is someone I've known for quite a while at Fairhope, and she has always impressed me with her love and compassion. Tracey Miller, good to see you.
Good to be here, Rick.
And I didn't put in your title. You are the grief support manager.
That would be it. But you know I don't run by titles. But yes, I do work in the grief department here at Fairhope.
Well, if we had a title of what you did, it would be about you'd have a little hook on your name badge. It would be pretty long.
I don't know. I think we would compete on that.
No, I'm just a pretty face. You're the one that, you're the pretty face and the grief supporter.
Mutual love going on here, folks.
Yeah, you always were the favorite. But it's a good show coming up, and I think one of the things I will get to right away is you won an award.
Yes, during 2020, was honored with the Dr. Jane Johnson Women of Vision Award, presented by Ohio University Lancaster.
Okay.
And due to COVID, all of that acknowledgement was put on hold until this year. So as we're looking at our recent 2021 Celebrate Women Conference, we informed the community of that award, and then they also looked at awarding the 2021 person. So there's a reason that we're kind of late in getting this out. But
and I'm assuming there was a pretty good, I would say, pool of people they chose from.
I was honestly surprised when I heard that I was being honored with this award. I love to talk, and that was one of those moments where I didn't talk. We're sitting in my office right now, and I happened to get that news, and when I first learned, I didn't know what to do, and I just took my chair and spun it and looked out the window at the trees. I was overwhelmed, to be honest.
Well, I can imagine, because it is a very impressive award, and you got awarded for a program and for what you do, which started out, I'd say, incidentally. You have a history with the school system. You came here as a volunteer. That's it. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But
and that was basically it. I think when you look at Fairhope as a whole, this is to speak to the power of our volunteers, the power of our staff, power of our leadership. We're all here with a common purpose to help. And we know that we have compassion, but I don't think any of us fully understand the scope of what might be requested of us, where people may be needing help. And so when the award came out, it actually gave me an opportunity to reflect on 10 years. It was a powerful self-reflection, I must say.
Yeah, and then, you brought up a point right there in that people don't realize the depth of what we do, the span of what we do. So many things, and a lot of your work doesn't involve people who have been on our service.
True.
Families.
And that is one thing that we're fortunate here at Fairhope. Our grief support services are offered free of charge to the community, which means you do not have to have a loved one on our services to get our grief support. And that's at an individual or a group level. And so we will support people whose loved ones have died by a variety of causes, such as the car accidents, the unexpected medical emergencies, some of the things related to substance abuse, and a variety of issues. The common factor is, regardless of how someone dies, someone's heart hurts. And that's the piece that we as hospice know. And that's the part that I'm really pleased to say that we have embraced and share with the community, a desire to help those hurting hearts.
And there's a lot, I've experienced grief, I think everybody has at one point or another, but you still are able to teach in that I can remember how long it would take for me to get over the death of my dad, or how long would I take for me to get over the death of my mom, my brother. Well, it doesn't.
And I think there's two key words that I just heard you say there. One was teach. Hospice grief support, our mission is to educate and to support. And so when people look at, well, how does someone, my background's education, come to do this? We are grief educators. We help people understand the process of grief. And then the other piece is get over. As you well know, we do not get over a death. We learn how to move with the death, how to keep those people in our lives, keep their memories, their lessons ever present. And I know that you have shared the lessons of your parents and how they're still a part of you.
Oh,
And, yeah, and it's shaped who we are.
And one of the things you've taught me, and I've used it in real life, which has helped, in that even years later, say, I still miss so-and-so. And I remember, and I tell the story quite a lot because it really hit home for me. I was at the art walk maybe 5 years ago, and a couple I've known since my daughter was in the first grade, and that's how we met, they lost their daughter suddenly. And that was right at the edge of high school, and I saw her and I said, boy, I sure miss your daughter. And she goes, thank you. Thank you. People were afraid I've forgotten. They don't want to bring it up like, I forgot I lost my daughter. It does. And this was 17, 18 years after she had passed when I mentioned her. She was still grateful that I brought up her daughter's name.
Everybody, those who are important in our lives, they matter. And they need to be ever present in our heart. And some people will disagree with me on that. But one of the lessons that I always share with the children is, the lesson of my grandma. And I took a picture of her measuring cups. And because whenever I went to grandma's house, we would cook. And so that picture of the measuring cups is on my personal cell phone. And when I'm missing grandma, I can look at that. So I will share that story with the children. And then they're always shocked to find out that happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I don't have to often look at those, but once in a while I can, and I can remember being connected. And I use that as an example to encourage people to find those connecting objects in their house so that they can forever stay with a person and take pictures of them.
Yeah, and it is amazing. And we always talk about, the emotional side of it and everything, but the physical object, my dad's Army hat, he wore it. I mean, there's just that instant connection. And,
that's part of our education that we get to do. We get to let people know it's not unusual to want to stay connected in that fashion. And that's the piece that I have enjoyed here for the past 10 years is taking what I have learned along the way, personally, professionally, and just being able to help and guide someone in that journey and people being receptive to the help. It's not easy to call and say, my heart is hurting, please listen.
Yeah. Well, this award we were talking about, and you earned it by developing a children's grief, not just grief in general, a child's grief. And I remember early on you had told me one time about, when there's a funeral, the kids might go to the grandma's funeral and then go back to school in a few days. And then you notice when you're in the school system, over weeks, months, or years, somebody's misbehaving, their grades are going down, what's going on. People are looking at all the surface reasons and not realizing it's grandma from months or years back.
And you're correct about that. When I left my teaching career to move into this realm of education, I had observed that children would experience a death and they would come back to the classrooms and people didn't know what to say. And the children were fearful because they didn't know how the children were going to interact with them. And that's one of the things that we get to do. We have a partnership with 4 area school districts: Lancaster City, Pickerington Local Schools, Fairfield Union Local Schools, and Logan Hocking. And for those schools who wish the additional support, I have gone into classrooms to help educate them when one of their classmates had a significant death and say, this person's going to be returning in a few days. How do you think we should interact with them? What should we do? And that helps the child when they return to school, that their classmates know what's going on and they're not as fearful going in and what's going to happen. Because one of the things that we do when we grieve is, and we're human, we put a little protective bubble around ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And when children come back to school, they don't need anybody poking that bubble. And so, we will educate classmates that when, I'll just pick a name, Susie comes back to school, you don't need to ask Susie a lot of questions. You can tell Susie you're sorry. You don't need to be hugging Susie. If she wants, some of that, she will let you know. Because some people, if you got that bubble up, the last thing that you want is a hug, because that hug might open up those tears that you're not ready to share at school.
And I guess probably a ambiguous question, is there somewhat of an age where grieving starts? I mean, would a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old? I know there's different perceptions for a child.
I believe that a child of any age can notice a change in their environment where children begin to be able to explain or articulate it. Here's going to be my speech therapy side coming out. You usually will see the greatest growth in spontaneous language is going to occur around the 2-year mark. And so you will start to see children at ages 2 to 3 begin to question. They may not be using a lot of words, but their behaviors are going to show that they're having a grief reaction. Usually we will begin to have active conversations with children when they're usually around age 5. Because between ages 2 and 5, their grief is what I call episodic. It comes out in small doses, and it's not connected to anything going on. We as adults, we live in a cause-effect world. This caused this to happen. Kids aren't that way. So we help them to just address it in the moment. So we start our active grief work at age 5.
I like that term, was it spontaneous conversation? I never heard about it. It makes sense. Instead of saying tree, they go into, I still have a hard time with tree.
That's okay. Well, like I said, sometimes my old training comes out once in a while.
But I can't remember, we had I was helping you with you used to have a Saturday morning grief camp, or a Saturday grief camp. It seemed like that was there where we were doing a game and the little boy just fell over and started crying for a few minutes, and then he just got back up, like you're just on, off, and it was kind of amazing. And you said that was, like you were talking about, those little grief bursts.
Yeah, we have those grief bursts that come out of nowhere. And just yesterday I was speaking with someone and patting them on the back for allowing themselves to have a grief burst. Because our sadness will find a way out, but we want it to be in a way that allows someone to be safe. Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting. And tell you what, we've still got a lot to talk about. What we're going to have to do is take a break, and we're talking to Tracey Miller, our grief support manager.
Manager, yes.
Who won the Jane Johnson Women of Vision Award. And I did all that without reading it. But we are proud of you, Tracey, and I can't wait for the next part, and we're going to be right back.
The moment that you're told that you have cancer, so many things were going through my mind.
I had this pain that kind of doubled over, and FMC got me the help that I needed, so I ended up surviving.
Fairfield Medical Center has helped me get through what was the hardest 6 months of my life.
When I first came to Fairfield Medical Center, she was probably having an allergic reaction. They saved her life, and that's why she's here today.
Dagger Law has been part of the Lancaster community for more than 110 years. This is where we live and work. You'll see us at festivals, sporting events, and all around town. We consider our clients as friends, and we walk alongside you through challenging times. Whether you're a growing business, a changing family, facing litigation, planning your future, or dealing with land issues, we're right here. We are local. We are trusted. We are experienced. Dagger Law.
Fairfield Federal. When it comes to our customers and our community, we go above and beyond to help. Our people make the difference.
We were retiring from Tucson, Arizona, and we made a retirement trip out around Ohio, having decided that's where we wanted to be. And we came across this town called Lancaster, and we fell in love with the downtown area where the fountain is and the memorials and the flags and all this stuff. And we looked around and I said, there's our bank right there.
There's something to be said about a community bank in your hometown.
Right. If you live in the community, you should do business in the community as much as possible. So it makes sense to bank with the community bank where you live.
Fairfield Federal is the bank to be at. If you live in this town, or any town actually, you want a bank at a local home bank. And the employees are happy here, they're conversant, customer service is through the roof. There's nothing more you could ask for.
Personal or business banking, whatever you need, we take it seriously because we know you do. Stop by today at any of our 3 locations and see why the difference is clear. Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan specializes in banking that revolves around you.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our 2 locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Hi, and welcome back. My name is Rick Schneider, community educator with Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care. We are the home of the Pickering House, and joining me for the second half is Tracey Miller, our grief support manager, and the winner of the Jane Johnson Women of Vision Award. And I had to, she's holding up the card behind, you can't see, but
now, folks, he remembered that on his own.
You betcha, and I'll tell you what, Fairhope was very honored to have you win that award. Actually, we're very honored to have you in our employ. You know, it's you've been such an asset to us, and you really did grow the grief support for children. I know at one time we had one of our social workers would assist, which was necessary, and it was very important at that time, but coming from the school system, you were able to, you know, the depth of children's grief, because you would see it long term.
And I am proud to say that Fairhope has allowed some of my areas of strength, and one is working as a speech therapist. I'm accustomed to children who did not want to communicate or struggle to communicate, and my core belief is that every child deserves to be heard, and that's even true for grieving children. And so I was able to bring that experience to Fairhope. And then the other piece that I think is the strength of our children's program is we're honest with kids. We let them know that someone is going to die. Grandma's body is getting weaker. This is what is going to happen. Because you've often heard me say this, children look at the world like a piece of Swiss cheese. And so there's gaps of information. As we as adults, as educators, we need to fill in the information at an age-appropriate level, because if we don't, they will fill it in, and often with misinformation. And so that's one of the hallmarks of our program. It's never easy to tell a child that a loved one is going to die, but in order to do that, I believe children need to know the truth so that they have an opportunity to share the messages with their loved one, so we can come up with a plan of how to keep them in school, because I'm going to go on my little teaching soapbox here, but children need to know 3 things: that their loved one knew that they were loved, that their life mattered, and then the dying person needs to make sure that the child will accept help from others and keep living the life that they're meant to live. So I often, when we get a chance to work with children, at least on the hospice side, is we help them to say, all right, if you're at school, how do you want to learn about a change in grandma or grandpa? Because we tell them, going to school, doing your activities, lets grandma know that you are living the life you're meant to live. If grandma needs one more message from you, she will wait until she gets that message.
And, well, you know, children really need to know what's going on. This is new to them. So when you ignore them, when you ignore telling them, it's catching them off guard. And even what you brought up is something I didn't realize, and I've been through it, is anticipatory grief. Let the children know early, and then they'll start filling in the holes with the correct way.
And the more that we can, that's one of the hallmarks of hospice, is we believe in educating the entire family on what's going on with a loved one, educating the patient, because the more that we can empower through education, the more we can keep people in relationship. So we expanded that to our children's program. And so we've done that on the hospice side. on the what we call community side, those unexpected emergencies where a death has occurred, we help the children to put a framework around what occurred, basically in that same kind of construct that you did your job. That's my whole premise, is you were heard and you did your job. I always like to say that the nature of our grief work, my grief work, is to reduce the shoulda, coulda, wouldas and make them less frequent and less intense.
And yeah, it's always everything you're saying, I go, wow.
Some days I get on my teaching soapbox a little bit more than others.
But, I guess along the line we're talking about, sometimes parents are afraid to let their children see them crying. And
I get
like
that one a lot.
Like they're weak or they're, what do I do if mom's crying?
You're getting close to the word that makes me bristle here, and that would be the opposite of weak. Strong.
Yeah.
If you know me well, I will tell you that every tear that we shed after a loved one died is a sign of strength. It takes strength to allow ourselves to feel the emotion. It takes strength to acknowledge the love. Every tear is a sign of love. I also say to adults who hesitate to share their tears, we as adults, we as parents, caregivers, we want to educate and model how to do this. Well, who better to do it than under your watch? Show your child an appropriate way to release the emotions. If we don't let sad out, it will find a way out, and you don't want it to be in any destructive fashion at all.
And you brought up a point that values are caught, they're not taught. You can say anything you want. What you do is, you allow them to see you crying, you're teaching them through watching, they're learning.
Yeah, and I think we don't ever want a child to hurt, so I think our best intentions are to protect the children, but to not tell them the totality of what's going on, that's not helping to protect them. That's taking away an opportunity. If we give the children choices to be involved in the process, involved in the funerals, then they feel as if I had a say, they were heard.
And you've always brought up the questions from them kind of let you know where they're at.
Oh yeah, people often say to me, "Well, tell me what to say." I said, "Listen to the child, follow their lead." What I do know is, having talked with over 1,300 children, I know some of the directions their conversations may go. I tend to look at the world like a deck of cards. So if you're in my head right now, there's lots of little decks of playing cards, and I just know which one to pull out at the time. I also have learned if I start to play one and it's not going right, it needs to go back in the deck and I need to get a different one. It's just experience. It's that 10 years of doing this. Yeah,
I was going to say, and probably everything you do is counterculture to everything we've been brought up in growing up. Showing the emotion, letting kids being involved, letting them ask questions. Oh, don't you ever.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons when I took the leap of faith to leave my teaching career to do this is I could see that there was a disconnect in what we were telling people, and I really felt that the more that someone could express those emotions, we could do it in a healthier fashion, and that also allowed the person to stay present in their lives, to have those, as you heard me say, continuing bonds.
Yeah, that's what, we were talking about earlier, that they need to be reminded through their life, that the person was there and accept it. And I don't say, I almost said, and go on with your life.
And you can move with your life. We never want anybody to feel bad that, I'm revisiting someone's death. Right now is a great reason to say that. I just got a call yesterday. I have a child who is, people are thinking the child's backsliding. Guess what happened? Spring hit. And everything that child did with their loved one was connected to spring activities.
Oh.
Now all of a sudden the child is feeling the loss at a greater level because spring is here and their loved one is not. And it's not really a regression, it's just a new awareness. So we deal with, okay, this is how grief feels in the spring without your loved one.
Funny you should mention that. One of the stories I always bring up is my dad passed in April years ago, and we went through the stages. This was way before I was in hospice work, and everything's fine through fall, zippity-doo-dah, more or less, and then came Thanksgiving. Oops.
Yep.
Do we set Dad's place? Who wants to sit there? It was just one of those that just whammed us, and we decided to set his place and not sit there. But that's one of those things, spring came and all of a sudden they're remembering. For us, Thanksgiving came and all of a sudden we're remembering. Dad cut the turkey. The head of the household, Norman Rockwell thing, and now what do we do? So
and it shows up in different moments. It can show up where I see this sometimes with a parent's death. The parent who died had certain jobs or roles that they did in the family, and then the surviving parent has not had practice at those. So when time comes up that maybe the going to bed routine, the getting up in the morning routine, the parent's not there to do it anymore, and those are where moments of grief reactions happen because the routine is different. And so we work through that and we, talk through it. Sometimes I tease the kids. I'll say, all right, I need you to count how many questions going to ask. I might be at 25 by the time we're done talking. But it's the only way to find out what's going on and then to help them come up with a plan to get through those moments.
I think if I were to sum up your job, acceptance is the key.
Acceptance also looks at being more familiar with the pain. The pain is not as unsettling. There are days where I miss my mother dearly, but I'm familiar with how that feels. So I'm like, okay, Mom, I miss you. I love you. Hey, I think you'd be proud of what I'm doing here. And so you keep that message with you, and it's important.
Yeah, and you can still eventually enjoy life.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
I think that's the hard part. It'll never be the same. Well, over time, you'll accept it, and like you said, start talking or keep the object that you can relate to with a family member, whatever it is. So, I think one time you said, I was born for this.
And there is a lyric to a song that I love, and the lyric is, long before your heart could accept the risk, you were born for this. And in my life, I can see where different life experiences have led me to this. And if I hadn't had that experience, then I would not be doing this. But interestingly, it's always those experiences that had the most challenge where I learned the most. And if I hadn't had those,
high five.
If I hadn't had those, I wouldn't be sitting here talking with you today.
And that's, no pain, no gain. Or if there's all sorts of little things, and it's the absolute truth when you protect anybody from danger, from hurt, from anything else, you're actually hurting them more than if you experience it. You learn to cope. You learn that if you get hurt, you're going to get over it. Not over it, but you'll go on with your life.
You'll be able to move with it. And that's the big message that we share. And in some people, that's a change in thinking.
Yeah, that's a hard part. And a lot of them, my parents grew up, you don't show emotion too much. And I know now, this is kind of off subject, but everybody, I love you, love you, love you, love you, thank you, bye, love you, mean it, bye. And it kind of gets, with all respect, sometimes a little thinned out. And my younger brother, we were talking about that one time, and goes, when I was probably 20 years old, I told Mom that I loved her, and she goes, well, that's nice. Boom. We knew she loved us, but that's
it was a
nice.
Different generation in how it was expressed.
Absolutely. And we are, one of the awakenings that we're doing is facing grief and understanding it and dealing with it. And it's one of the deals, you face it, about half of it just evaporates right when you're going.
Well, and Rick, I need to thank you. You have been a strong supporter of the children's program. You have been there with these grieving children, giving up your weekends to help us. And that support has been valuable over the years.
That's in the old days, and I have been very fortunate working at Fairhope. And in the early days, we were a little shorter staffed, and we didn't have people who did everything. And as a volunteer, they'd ask me, could I do something? I'd say, sure, and then figure out when, who, and how. But you learn. So I'll tell you what, we're going to have to wrap up the show way too quickly. Is there any way they can contact you if they do have concerns?
So if you know of someone or yourself is in need of grief support, please give us a call at 740-654-7077, and the receptionist will connect you to someone in the grief team. I always tell people they don't let us get far away. Again, 740-654-7077.
And I might add that a human answers the phone 24 hours. If there is a crisis in the middle of the night, call us, and somebody will call you back, or not call you back, but will direct you to the correct person. Right. So My head's swimming here. I've learned so much, I'm gonna have to take a break. So we're gonna have to get going here. Tracey Miller, winner of the Vision, hello. Jane Johnson.
You did it, yeah.
Award.
Women of Vision Award. We'll tag team it. How about that?
Yeah, thank you very
From
much.
Ohio University, Lancaster.
Ohio University, yes.
Yeah.
So long story short, thank you for watching. And remember, celebrate life.
Interphase Video presents Fairfield Today. Brought to you by Fairfield Federal Savings and Loan, Fairfield Medical Center, Fairhope Hospice and Palliative Care, the Fairfield County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Dagger Law, and the Frank E. Smith Funeral Home.